Your cutoff game is sharp. Your sword is no longer decorative. There was a time when your discernment was soft, not because you were weak, but because you were still learning the difference between compassion and self-betrayal. You gave second chances when the first violation was enough. You entertained people, places, and situations that your soul had already outgrown. You stayed in cycles that drained your light because you believed love meant endurance. You ignored the red flags because you wanted the potential to become the reality. You overrode your body, your intuition, your inner alarms because you hoped your presence could heal what was never yours to carry. But that version of you has changed. Now they notice it. They notice that your energy no longer lingers where it is not respected. They notice that your silence has become sharper than their words. They notice that your exits are cleaner, your boundaries firmer, your discernment quicker. They notice that the sword you carry is no longer ceremonial. It is sharpened, and what they call cold is often simply clarity. What they call distance is often simply self-respect. What they call "you've changed" is often the moment they realize they no longer have access to the version of you that tolerated misalignment. This is not bitterness. This is not armor built from resentment. This is wisdom embodied. You have lived enough to know that not every invitation is alignment. Not every connection is sacred. Not every familiar face is meant to walk with you into the next chapter. And because you have learned this, your cutoff game is sharp, not reckless, not impulsive, not egoic, sharp. This mission is for the ones who have realized that every cycle, every person, every tempting return of the old is often a test of frequency. Will you choose what is aligned, or will you choose what is familiar? Will you choose growth, or will you choose comfort dressed as connection? Will you choose truth, or will you choose the old story one more time? You know now what many do not. Some doors are not meant to be healed. They are meant to be closed. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below so we know you're here and connected to Source. You stayed too long so you could never miss the lesson again. There are some lessons the chosen do not learn in theory. They learn them through overextension, through staying too long in rooms they should have left at the first sign, through entertaining conversations that already felt heavy in the body, through giving chances to people whose actions had already revealed the truth, through hoping the next version of someone would be more aligned than the one standing right in front of them. You did not become discerning because you were born cynical. You became discerning because you have evidence. Evidence gathered through betrayal. Evidence gathered through repeated cycles. Evidence gathered through trying to save what was committed to staying the same. Evidence gathered through denying your own knowing long enough to feel the consequences fully. This is why your clarity is so expensive. It cost you time. It cost you peace. It cost you sleep. It cost you parts of yourself that had to be reclaimed after they were scattered across unaligned people and situations. But none of it was wasted, because what you stayed too long in taught you how to leave earlier now. What once took you months to admit, you now feel in moments. What once required repeated pain to confirm, your spirit now identifies at the first energetic shift. What once confused you now reads like a pattern you have already survived. This is the hidden mercy of your past. You stayed long enough in dysfunction that now truth becomes obvious faster. You no longer need 6 more signs. You no longer need public proof. You no longer need the collapse to justify the exit. You have learned that one clear red flag is not a puzzle to solve. It is information. And the chosen who respect information move differently. There was a version of you who thought endurance was maturity, who thought staying proved loyalty, who thought patience meant self-erasure. But grace without boundaries becomes permission. Loyalty without discernment becomes bondage. Patience without truth becomes delay. You know that now, and because you know that now, your exits are no longer born from anger alone. They are born from data, from experience. Pain repeated becomes pattern recognition. Once pattern recognition awakens, your life changes. Red flags no longer need translation. There was a time when you translated what was clear. You called inconsistency confusion, disrespect a bad moment, manipulation, woundedness, avoidance timing, your own discomfort, overthinking. But now, you read what is there. You understand. Understanding someone is not the same as being meant to stay with them. Compassion does not require access. Empathy does not require proximity. A red flag is information, not something to decode endlessly, not something to justify, not something to negotiate with. It is a signal, and now you trust the signal. You no longer need all the answers. You trust the feeling, because your intuition remembers every time you ignored it. Now you honor it, and that is why your decisions are faster, clearer, and cleaner. Better alone than misaligned. There are many who would rather be accompanied in distortion than alone in truth. But you have learned differently. You have learned being alone is not the worst thing. Being disconnected from yourself is. There is a loneliness that heals, and a company that drains. Healing solitude returns you to yourself. It restores your clarity. It brings your energy back into alignment. Misaligned company creates confusion, self-doubt, energetic drain. So yes, better alone. Better alone than shrinking. Better alone than negotiating your worth. Better alone than entertaining what your soul rejects. Aloneness is not abandonment. It is preparation. And the chosen know peace is more valuable than presence. Every return of the old is a test of frequency. The chosen often think tests come in dramatic forms, but many tests arrive disguised as familiar invitations. An old person returns. A past pattern reappears. A tempting situation presents itself again. A cycle you thought you outgrew suddenly knocks on the door, dressed in new language. And the question is never just, do you want this? The deeper question is, have you learned? This is how frequency works. Life does not only reward what you desire, it reveals what you are aligned with through your choices. If you have truly risen in frequency, you will no longer respond to what once owned your attention, not because it disappears, but because it no longer fits. The return of the old is not always a sign it belongs. Often, it is a final exam. Will you reopen what hurt you because it is familiar? Will you choose what feels easy over what feels true? Will you betray your current clarity for the comfort of an old pattern? The ones who evolve understand this deeply. Some invitations are not there for participation. They are there for measurement, to see whether the lesson has integrated into action, to see whether your discernment now has legs, to see whether your cutoff game is actually sharp or only poetic. Growth is not proven by insight alone. It is proven when the same energy returns and you respond differently. That is when the universe records. The cycle has ended. The data has been integrated. The pattern no longer holds authority here. Every time you choose alignment over habit, your frequency stabilizes. Every time you refuse what once had power over you, your field becomes cleaner. Every time you honor the present truth instead of the past attachment, your future opens further. This is why some decisions feel difficult, because they are not simply about a person, place, or moment. They are about the version of you are confirming. When you pass these tests, it is not because you have become cold. It is because you have become coherent. Potential is not presence. One of the hardest spiritual lessons the chosen learn is this: you must accept people for who and where they are, not for who they could become under ideal circumstances. Potential has trapped many awakened souls because you can see what others cannot. You can see the hurt beneath the harshness, the beauty beneath the distortion, the future version hidden inside the current chaos. And while this perception is real, it becomes dangerous when you begin relating to who someone could be instead of who they are, consistently choosing to be. Potential is not presence. Potential is not behavior. Potential is not maturity. Potential is not safety. Potential is not accountability. Potential is not alignment. You cannot build a life with potential. You cannot rest in potential. You cannot trust potential when reality continues to contradict it. The chosen with sharp discernment eventually stop dating, befriending, collaborating with, or investing in fantasies of people. They begin honoring reality. Who is this person now? How do they move now? How do I feel around them now? What do their actions reveal now? This is not pessimism. This is truth-telling. Because when you stop loving people for their possibility and begin seeing them for their present embodiment, you free yourself from years of unnecessary delay. You stop waiting for them to become who they hinted at. You stop building castles out of glimpses. You stop offering lifelong loyalty to someone who is only giving temporary effort. You accept, and acceptance is powerful. It says, I see where you are. I do not need to hate you to leave you. I do not need to deny your humanity to deny you access. I release the imaginary version of you and respond to the truth of you. This is where your cutoff game becomes especially sharp, because it is no longer fueled by emotion alone. It is sharpened by realism. And realism is mercy when illusion has cost you enough. Your intuition became a blade. There was a time when your intuition came as a whisper. Now it arrives like steel, not because it changed, but because you finally started listening. The chosen often spend years overriding their first knowing. They ask for more evidence. They seek consensus. They call others to interpret what their spirit already revealed. But after enough repetition, enough consequences, enough living through the price of ignoring yourself, intuition becomes unmistakable. You do not always know why something is off, but you know. You do not always have the full story, but you feel the pattern. You do not always need visible proof, because your body, your energy, your spirit have already read what is present. This is the blade. A sharpened intuition does not make you paranoid. It makes you precise. You begin entering fewer situations blindly. You begin recognizing manipulation before it becomes a mess. You begin feeling the energetic tax of certain people before the transaction is complete. This is sacred intelligence. and it is expensive. It was sharpened by every lesson you survived. Now, the chosen stop second-guessing the blade. They stop trying to sand it down to make others comfortable. They stop apologizing for being hard to access. They stop pretending not to notice what their whole body is signaling. You trust yourself now. That is one of the greatest powers a soul can reclaim. Because a trusted intuition shortens suffering. It leaves earlier, decides faster, sees clearer, protects peace before the collapse. And though some will call this extreme, the chosen know better. This blade is not there to wound. It is there to sever confusion. Some exits are holy. Not every exit is loss. Some exits are liberation. Some exits are overdue. Some exits are the first honest prayer your life has spoken in years. Some exits are the very act that proves to the universe you are finally aligned with what you say you want. Leaving is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is internal before it is visible. You stop investing. You stop hoping. You stop explaining. You stop trying to force harmony where your soul keeps signaling misalignment. Then the outer move follows. A sacred exit is not impulsive. It is ripe. It happens when you have seen enough to stop negotiating, felt enough to stop pretending, learned enough to stop reenacting. Some exits are holy because they close the gate to a frequency you can no longer afford to entertain. And yes, they can be painful because endings still touch the heart. Even aligned endings can grieve. Even necessary departures can ache. But grief does not mean wrong. It means real. Some exits are not failures of love or commitment. They are acts of devotion to truth. The sword is sharp because you no longer fear being misunderstood. One of the biggest reasons people stay too long is not lack of clarity. It is fear of being perceived incorrectly, fear of seeming cold, fear of seeming harsh, fear of seeming unforgiving, fear of disappointing others, fear of being called selfish for choosing peace. But the chosen, with sharpened discernment, eventually release the need to be well understood by those who benefited from their confusion. This changes everything, because when you stop needing everyone to agree with your boundary, you become free enough to honor it. You realize that many people only liked your softness when it gave them access. They only liked your patience when it delayed your exit. They only praised your heart when it kept the door open to what your spirit had already closed. But now, you are no longer available for misunderstanding to become a leash. You let people call it what they want. Cold, different, distant, too much, too sharp, to leave without becoming cruel, to protect yourself without becoming hard-hearted, to stay loving without staying available. That balance is mastery. What leaves makes room for what matches. The chosen do not cut off just to cut off. They cut off to clear the field. Every misaligned connection consumes space. Every old cycle occupies emotional bandwidth. Every dead-end dynamic uses energy that could be nourishing the future. This is why the exits matter, not only because they remove pain, but because they create capacity. What leaves makes room. Room for true friendship. Room for aligned partnership. Room for rest. Room for joy. Room for your own creativity, voice, and mission to breathe. Many do not realize how crowded their spirit has become until something ends, because the frequency of your life changes when you stop offering it to what cannot meet it. Sharp does not mean closed. Let this be clear. Chosen one. A sharp cut-off game does not mean your heart has died. It means your discernment has matured. You are still loving, still compassionate, still capable of seeing beauty in people, still willing to meet others with grace. But now, your grace includes yourself. Your love includes boundaries. Your compassion includes distance when necessary. Your softness includes self-protection. Your open heart now has a gate, and not everyone gets through it. This is not bitterness. It is wholeness. The sword is blessed. Your sword is sharp because your soul has learned. You have cried enough over what should have ended sooner. You have stayed long enough in lessons that were trying to become scars. You have confused potential for presence, pattern for love, and history for destiny enough times to know better now. And now, you do. Now, you listen sooner, feel faster, leave cleaner, trust deeper. Not because you are unforgiving, but because you are no longer available for what dishonors your peace. This is not coldness. This is consecration. Your spirit has become too clear to keep renting itself out to confusion, too wise to keep feeding expired cycles, too honest to keep calling misalignment a test of loyalty. You know what many still resist. Every return of the old is not romance. It is often examination. Every invitation is not alignment. It is often information. Every ache to go back is not intuition. It is often attachment losing oxygen. And because you know this, your exits are no longer emotional chaos. They are sacred decisions. The sword is sharp now, not sharpened by hatred, sharpened by truth, not wielded to destroy, wielded to sever what your future cannot carry. So let them notice, let them feel that your access has changed. Let them realize the version of you that tolerated less than your frequency is gone. Ancient One, we now ask you, when was there a time your intuition told you something was off? And did you listen?